Hello, my name is Jeffrey Tumlin. I'm a principal with Nelson Nygaard Transportation Planning in San Francisco. And in my CNU 202, we're going to be talking about transit-oriented development, and in particular, the difference between transit-oriented development and transit-adjacent development. One of the factors that separates the oriented from the adjacent is parking, which is also probably my favorite topic in transportation planning. Parking is important because it's expensive. As a motorist, I love seeing empty parking spaces, but as somebody who cares about the economy of our cities, I know that every empty parking space that's out there is a waste of about $20,000 to $40,000 because that's how much it really costs to build parking in most cities. Parking is also a big consumer of land, and if you're requiring more than 3 spaces per 1,000 square feet of development, as most cities do, you're requiring more land to be set aside for parking than for the building itself. This is an image of a city which I shall not name in order to protect the not innocent. And this is a mixed-use, transit-adjacent development. There's actually, you can hardly see it, but a light rail station off there in the corner. And this city assumed that it was necessary to accommodate the worst-case scenario in terms of driving trips. Every trip in this development is assumed to be by car. And as a result, if you live in the lower right-hand corner of this photo and you work across the street in the center of the photo, you're likely going to get in your car to drive to work across the street, because who would want to walk in this environment? Even though, as you can see, there are sidewalks and even halfway decent landscaping. Similarly, if you worked in that office building and wanted to go to lunch in the lower left-hand corner, you're probably going to get in your car in order to drive across the street in order to get to lunch. Parking also has a profound impact on housing affordability. In studies done in San Francisco, we found that for every parking space you attach to a residential unit, you increase the price of that unit by about 15 to 30%, and you decrease the number of units that can be built on a typical parcel by about 15 to 25%. In addition, in its former location-efficient mortgage program, Fannie Mae told us that for every car a household can get rid of, that effectively qualifies them for an additional $100,000 in mortgage over the 30-year lifespan of a typical mortgage. Parking is also a factor in traffic congestion. For commercial districts, successful commercial districts, we oftentimes find that up to about 30% of the traffic in those commercial districts is cars driving around in circles trying to find an empty parking space. And if you know about the magic of congestion, even in the most congested situation, removing just 10% of vehicles can eliminate the congestion problem entirely. So when 30% of your congestion is cars driving around in circles, there's no excuse to mismanage parking and still complain about traffic congestion. Indeed, parking is something that drives all of us who are in the business of building cities crazy. So what can you do? Well, there's several steps. One is, and it's one that we don't always like talking about, but one of the first steps is to protect your existing residents against concerns about spillover parking. One tool for doing this is restrictive residential parking permits. There is a couple of challenges in the creation of residential parking permits, which is that the price that you're able to sell these permits at is limited to simply recouping your administrative costs of running the program. As a result, it's easy to sell more residential permits than you have spaces available, in which case the permit simply becomes a hunting license rather than any useful guarantee that residents can find a space. Nonetheless, it is a useful tool for beginning a serious conversation about managing parking in your mixed-use districts by first protecting your existing single-family home residents. The next step is to invest in smart parking meters. Now, the parking meter was invented in 1947 in Oklahoma City by merchants who were concerned that too many employees were parking on Main Street, and they wanted to reserve those spaces for customers. Unfortunately, most cities today are still running parking meters using 1947 technology. In order to have a real conversation about parking, the first step that you must do is to invest in parking meters that accept the same forms of payment that normal human beings have with them on their person. If your businesses on Main Street required quarters for payment for their goods and services, they would quickly go out of business. All parking meters today should accept credit cards and debit cards and be able to text you on your cell phone to ask you if you want more time. The first and most important rule of parking is to put your customers first and to remember that the reason why we charge for parking is to create availability for customers. Your city will make far more money off of a successful commercial district than it will ever make off of parking meters. So this is just a small taste of what you can learn at our CNU 202 on transit-oriented development in Salt Lake City. You'll also learn about ways in which transit-oriented development can reduce traffic and improve air quality in your region. Also the ways in which it can help to achieve your quality of life, affordable housing, and ecological sustainability goals. We hope that you'll join us in Salt Lake City. Thank you.